Hi, GB.
Hi, Ruby. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good, very good.
Okay, so this is no bullshit session number 4. I can't believe it. Yeah. So
Wow.
here we are. What did you want to talk about today?
um,
What's for today?
what's new in GB's world?
Yes.
I wanted to talk about today the word complexity and simplicity because we hear all the time that we simplify, simplify, simplify. We're supposed to be living a life that's simple, and I'll tell you where it's coming from. So I'm finding with me that when a situation happens with another person, say the person says something that's condescending or mean or whatever it is, I interpret it as that person's not being very nice, and then I relay that story to a third person, and we say things like, she said this, I said this, and she said this, and I said this. And I'm finding what happens is when I relay that information to somebody, I lose the essence of what factually happened because I'm putting in all of my feelings and my opinions and my thoughts. So the situation becomes a lot more complex than it
Yes.
actually needs to be. And I find as human beings, like I hear this from other people as well, that a situation will happen and it seems like we've lost our compass as to how bad the situation actually is. And I think we expand and exaggerate and make the situation a lot bigger than what it is. So, my
Mhm.
for you this week is around, why do we do that? What do we get out of it? And how do we stop doing that?
Yeah. You're right, actually. I've always felt that people don't listen well. By that, I mean that we are hearing things that probably weren't said or are not also meant to be said. I find that a lot. When I ask people to tell me the facts, exact conversation, not what they thought, just repeat the words, then actually you can see that a lot of times it was just a conversation. That's all it was. So, which actually could have been handled in a whole different way. So, somewhere I think because I hate to say this, but we've been giving ourselves so much importance, it's self importance, that we think we are invincible. We think that, um, we've built ourselves more than our own life somehow. So, larger than life. Um, and then, of course, our world has to be large. And somehow people are not fitting, conversations are not fitting. There seems to be a hierarchy already. We are on unequal ground. When you actually go into your office or any conversation or any dialogue, and you feel that you may know more than that person, which is, of course, will be in work situations, that's a whole different field, but sometimes just listening and really asking that, okay, I'm understanding that this is what you said, is this what you meant? I think that is so important, Chivi, because we come back with a bag of something that happened, but we fictionalized it. So because also we have so many stories hidden in our unconscious mind. We have all these traumas and suppressed feelings and stresses, and now we don't hear properly, I think. So there is no situation, there's no dialogue that couldn't be had. What is the worst? The worst is that people will have a reaction to it, right? And
Hmm.
if you can sustain that for a few minutes, the reaction dies, actually. So I think people who are into self improvement, they start to notice these things that I just want to have a good dialogue. So I'm going to make sure what she said is what I thought she said. So I think that is a very strong starting point. And like I said, we have so many stresses and so many stories. And when we are talking to a person, and another GV thing, we all think we are intuitive. We all think we've got the psychic ability to know what the person meant. Well,
Hmm.
that's bullshit. We don't really.
Mm,
We don't know where the person is coming from. Maybe sometimes we're right, but sometimes it's a dangerous zone when we think what will be said and
mm,
what is being said is not suiting you. That so you can, if you're fully present, we can maneuver those conversations and dialogues, and we don't have to make them larger than life. Somehow it's a fad to have big challenges, you
mm,
know
mm,
challenges that our forefathers had. They had survival issues, Jivi. They
mm,
didn't know where the food would come from. They
mm,
didn't know, there weren't proper schools. There wasn't no healthcare. So the challenges we have actually are not those survival challenges. These are challenges of privileged people in a
mm,
rich society, right?
mm,
So the least I think we can do, recognize the wealth, the abundance we have, and then start to dialogue.
mm,
And that brings me to the conversation we were having the other day about chaos, and you mentioned that something about chaos. There's a
mm,
lot of chaos these days, and
mm,
there is, but chaos is different from the Second World War. Chaos is different when those revolutions, when India was fighting for freedom. So it's not about that. We are, actually, there is an identity crisis right now. That's what I feel. That
mm,
people are, they don't really know which side they belong, or because there's so much information out there to choose from, right?
mm,
And the media and all of this, and influencers, which could be the religious leaders, which could be the philosophers. There's so much impact and influence upon our thinking that we are constantly having to change our ideas. So I think when we externally start to focus on what to choose, what is best for today, we forget that there is, our soul wants to speak too. So we have to listen to our soul to see how do we incorporate that information. So identity crisis is very real. We are, the chaos we have is about that. You've got leaders who you really like, you have leaders who you really hate, you have situations that you hate, and you have situations that you really like. So I think in this we are in a very privileged position. We can actually choose and say, I stand with this, I
mm.
do not want to stand with that. So we've got so many choices right now that we've never had before. So it's not really chaos of that nature. I think it's probably the best time on our planet to for enlightened living and living by choice and free will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense because I think you're correlating chaos with the complexity that I'm talking about, that we create that complexity within ourselves. Because I know that when I have a side conversation with you and I say, Ruby, this is what's going on in my life right now. This lady at work, we're dealing with this, and she's like this, and she's like this. And then when you say to me, well, what was the actual conversation that happened? And then what I say to you is I go into the fact because I respect you and I admire you and I want to do what you're telling me to you. But in my heart, I'm thinking, Ruby thonu nahi pata हैगा, oh how bad she is. मेरे
Yeah.
दिल दे विच मेरे ये हुंदा है, right? It says, no, Ruby, you just don't know. थोनू नहीं पता हो किन्नी माड़ी आ हो. Like that's what's going on for me. It's almost like I want to justify
Yes.
the creation of the chaos. And so when you say to me, well, GB, you're building this box around yourself, every time you meet this personality now you're going to act the same way and you're going to expect the same things. So I think it builds that complexity, and yet it happens every time. Like I'm telling you, like, it doesn't matter how many times we have this conversation, I get into the situation where somebody says something or does something and I think, wow, like that was really not nice. And then I build this whole web of information around it.
Yes.
The only I,
Yes.
this was what she really meant. So I get away
Yeah.
from the fact and say, no, Ruby, thonu nahi pata ਉਹਦੀ intention ਕੀ ਸੀਗੀ,
Yes. Yes.
right? And then,
So there's two things, Jivi. First of all, we are not at war.
hmm,
There's no war. The war is in our mind, basically, of what is right, what is wrong, who is going to hurt you, who's the attacker, who will be the victim. So the memory of those struggles are in us, and they're not resolved. They're still lying there. because we very seldom people work with the shadow. They don't they don't want to go there. They just want to build on life. They don't look at what their weaknesses are and then confront the fears. Nobody wants to do that. You just want to improve, build. So it's, imagine building a 5-story house on, and the what you may say, the foundation is weak, so it'll crack.
Mm,
Our foundations are basically weak because we've never done the inner work properly. We've just
mm,
done it to get ahead and be more important. So our reasons for doing it were not simplicity. We actually did it with a lot of complexity to become more complex. And now we've got the language. So first thing is, there's no war going on. There is no army, your army and their army. There is no attack on you. People are barely existing, managing their stresses, just like you. The
mhm,
world is actually full of people exactly like us, who are trying to manage stress. Some are doing better, some are not doing better at all, right? So everybody in some way is in that struggle, unless you face the struggle and it drops somewhere, right?
mm,
So, second thing is, now when you say, and I've heard you say many times, that I want to change the world, I want to be so special that people should come to me and nobody else in the world would give what I give, right? Okay,
mm.
because you want to do something special. So
Of
when
course.
we set out to do something special, that means we are changing the world in some way, bettering the world in some way, enhancing something, right?
Mhm,
When that happens, then how about developing a character from that, that no matter what people say, no matter what people do, you will be able to either convince them or be convinced, or deal appropriately with them in any given situation. So you don't actually start the struggle and the war, because I think that's very important. You have to realize your role as an influencer.
mm,
This is not how influencers or leaders should act. They actually try and make sense of the situation, try and dialogue, understand exactly, and then make proper decisions. The decision could be never to meet that person. That's absolutely right decision too.
mm,
There's no right or wrong way, but it should be thought out rather than rejecting. So
mm,
I think we have cynicism when our lives are not going the way we want them to. And this is 98% of the population, probably, that they're not happy with their lives,
mm,
right? And there's this kind of built in cynicism. Now, I couldn't get there, or I haven't gotten to that state. So somehow we actually will pull down the person and rip their clothes and just try and declare that they are not good.
mhm.
So I think this is our tendency. It's not just, it's many people who become victim to that, right?
Of course, yeah.
That's, yeah.
Well, it comes back to the mental constructs that you talk about all the time around these are the frameworks that we know and we robotically keep repeating through those frameworks that because I know with this work situation, if I ever came across that personality again, I'm already ready for battle.
Yeah, see the battle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
yeah,
already ready because I think that's the way the other person behaved. Now
yeah.
this person is behaving 1% of that, so therefore I've already judged the outcome.
Yeah. And anybody who looks like that person, you are ready to battle them too. So
Indeed.
it's not just that one person, is anybody who represents that type of person now is enemy territory. You're prepared.
Mhm.
And the battle and the ammunition is in us, because we are so good with words, and we can throw out, you can articulate really well. So it's not hard to throw out the bullets, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes we are passive. We don't. Another thing, Shivi, I want to bring up is that we don't deal with the situation then, and we are passive about it there, but
Yep.
then we are active on Facebook pages.
Yep.
We never deal with that situation properly. We're asking others to then validate what we believe.
Mhm. Mhm.
right? What do you think? What
Yeah.
is this? What is that? So I would say that we should look at our own shit and be able to manage that clearly, and that's very successful actually. That's really self growth, and then not take it out in the public unless you actually need to. Yeah,
Ruby, don't you? And I'm gonna ask a silly question. Don't you think there's just mean people? Like, aren't some people
yeah,
just mean people?
yes, they are.
How do you hold? Like, how do I
Yeah.
hold my stature when I experience somebody that I feel is just a mean person?
Yeah, it's good to also do some reality check, GV, to see how many people in your life have been mean like that or were mean to you. If there's a pattern, it'll show up.
Mm.
But another thing is that we are dealing with the world. You've studied a lot, you've done a lot of programs yourself, so you have high level of awareness. So this is where, what are you going to do with a meanie? There's two, three things you can do. You can actually blast them. You can actually throw their disguise, just unrobe them very quickly, unmask them. That's perfectly fine. You can walk away. That I don't have the time to deal with this, right? Or if you need to deal with them, then you could dialogue and come to a negotiating point. Like you could talk about, okay, how are we going to work this out? If you still need to work with them, right? So
Yeah.
there is no hard, fast rule that you have to stick to the person. You can actually, it's not mean in saying that I'm done. I'm not going there. And I don't have energy for that. I'm really done. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a great. There are all kinds of people. There are very evil people out there.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who will. There's a lot of crazies, and we have a bit of crazy. We've seen it in ourselves. Everybody has that, and
Yeah.
we are all capable. But no one person is every the same way to everyone. So the person who could
Ah.
come to you could actually be very compassionate somewhere else.
Indeed, yes. Like with this work situation, I've heard people say that this person that I have difficulty with is an amazing person. Like I've had, and then, there's other people that say, no, you just stay away from her. Like it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
But I'm no doubt her partner, or if she has kids or family, and,
Yes.
that is actually a really interesting golden nugget, that just because we perceive that person one way doesn't mean that everybody else perceives that person
Yeah.
that way.
Now I'm going to throw something else at you.
Yeah, you bet.
And it's very important so to know that you have a goal. You have a big plan for your life.
Mhm.
Okay. So you can't afford to be thrown off by situations. You can't.
Yeah.
At work, in your personal life, anywhere at all.
Mhm.
Okay. In a grocery store, you can't afford that because you have a strong agenda.
Mhm.
And every minute of how you think and what you act is being accounted by you,
Mhm.
right? So you're a very conscientious person, basically.
Mhm.
Now, do we have time? So this is, I'm going to give you another side, and just bear with me. I'm going to give you a ruthless side, that
Mhm.
you have time for this shit, and you can actually decide to say, I've got a strong busy day. I don't have stuff to deal with this or people like this. I don't want to understand them. I don't want to understand that they're good elsewhere, that they may not be bad at heart,
Yeah.
they may not be this, but this is what I want, and this is what I want to move on with, because I have things to achieve and places to go and things to do. So,
In,
that is very ruthless and very strong. But when your own life plan and purpose is not clear, the goal is not clear, we then become subject to these momentary situations and then start to analyze them. And then, usually we'll be hard on a person, GB, and then we will sympathize with them because we don't want to sound hard.
mm,
Because the world has told us that, oh, you should be compassionate,
yeah.
right? Okay.
Indeed.
So we've been screwed with. Our minds have originality has been absolutely hijacked by different systems of how to be nice, how to be bad, and So what I'm saying is that stick to your goal, stick to your soul, do what is right for you. If that means that you have to be a pushover, you don't want to deal with it, it is absolutely your right to do
Mhm.
it. So by trying to be nice, and then we are not nice because we're not feeling good inside, anyways, right?
Mhm.
I find
Yeah.
that I gave you that scenario, but I want you to think about this: that are you a soul who has strong ambitions and a real set out goal? Do you even have time to get involved with this bullshit? If
Mhm.
not, dump it. It's not your shit. It's not your monkey.
Mhm.
Simple.
But
Yeah.
like Ruby, what happens is because I'm so focused at work and I'm focused generally in my own life. That's exactly the wording I'll use. I'll say I don't have time for this shit, and I've got things to do, and I've got people who want me in that role, so therefore I'm going to focus on those people, and I don't have time for this. So Jabani ta keh dinni hai, but when I come home and I'm just about to go to sleep, ਫੇਰ ਮੈਂ ਉਹ ਗੱਲ ਸੋਚ ਸੋਚ ਕੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਮੱਖਣ ਕੱਢਦੀ ਆ ਪੂਰਾ,
Yeah.
right? Because I just keep twirling it again and again and again, because what happens is it bugs me that there's this one person that I don't get along with. Oh, bother kari anda. It's like this
Yes.
nasty feeling
Yes.
in my heart of, man, like what, and I play it again and again. मैं की किया, ओने की किया, मैं आई
Yeah.
नहीं, ओने आई नहीं कहना सीगा, blah blah blah. So at work, I can get to the point of I really don't give a shit. I have to do what I have to do. But then in idle time, when I come home, just and especially before I go to bed, that's the worst. Is then that's when it starts to whirl and twirl in my
Yeah.
mind.
So if you were out and it's raining or whatever, and you fell into some muck or dog poo, now there's poo on your clothing, you smell like poo. What do? You come home, you run home or go to a place and you wash yourself first, right? And if you think you still smell of poo or shit, you go back, have another shower, and put some perfume on or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you wonder as to, did I fall? Why did I fall? Who could have done this? Why did this happen?
Yes.
So that's what I mean, that it's overactive mind.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have that where you get stuck on something and you can't stop the record,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And whatever sense you're going to make will be senseless, because it doesn't matter. You cannot predict why it happened. You cannot predict the conditions that other person was in, and you cannot judge your own behavior. Should I have said this? Should I have done that?
Yeah.
Because you know what, we think there's lessons to be learned. Bullshit. Every situation is new,
Yeah.
and you just deal with it the way you need to. So I was talking to somebody today and it was really interesting. The person said that it was a mistake they had made many years ago. And I said, when did you realize you made a mistake? Well, now that they think about it, they think it's a mistake. So every time we do a rethinking, a rerun, we will have 10 different ways of dealing with the same situation, because you've had many experiences from then to now. So there is no mistake at that given time when you acted. You acted to the best of your ability. Maybe you were foolish, maybe you were stupid, maybe whatever. You did the best. Now, when you rethink, it sounds like a mistake. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, almost 99%, uh, and even I'm sure the Buddha had to catch himself all the time, that looking for mistakes, had he made mistakes? Because this is human mind, how the operating system works. When you revisit, now you're revisiting something with all these other experiences, but the situation is not the same, Jivi. You're not the same. The person's not the same. So your knowledge is shit all. It doesn't mean a thing.
Yes. Yeah.
So, how do you dump that shit, and how do you have a bath that you don't go back to it? Now, you just change your listen to music or make a strong decision, no dialogue, no self talk, and don't talk about it. If it bothers you, talk to somebody who will not validate your belief, will
Mm-hmm.
actually show you the mirror.
Yes.
And there's very few people out there, because
Yeah.
everybody wants to win friends. They'll be your friend, so they'll
Yeah.
validate you. Yeah.
Your story about this lessons learned is so funny right now, and It's hilarious because I'm gonna give you again just a silly example of what's going on. As you know, that I've been on this achar making binge, right?
Yeah,
And so what happened was the first jar I made, which was green chili, I wanted to replicate that recipe. But a chart is one of those things that the recipe cannot be replicated because ਉਹ ਮਾੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਫਰਕ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਰਹਿ ਜਾਂਦਾ. Every one of them tastes beautiful, like they all taste good, but there's a slight variance. And it's funny because I was getting upset with myself. Why am I not able to replicate the same jar that I made in the beginning? Until I sat back and I'm like, every situation, every time I'm pickling, whether it's green chili, whether it's lemons, each jar in itself is
yeah,
distinct in itself. ਕਿਸੇ ਚ ਕਲੌਂਜੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪੈ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿਸੇ ਚ ਹੀਂਗ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪੈ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ. Like it's just the way
yeah,
my
yeah,
palate.
yeah, yeah,
But so what you're talking about, the lessons that we learned, and every moment is just that action. I'm finding it directly applicable. Just learning what I'm doing
yeah.
through jar, that every jar is so distinct
Yes. Every
because the mix.
time you think of something, it could be the same river. It's like you cannot step into the same river twice, the
Yeah.
same thing. That every time you think of something, you have already thought about it. So you're thinking about what you were thinking about what you were thinking about. So, it's like something happens. Now, by the time I see that it has happened,
Mm-hmm.
so I will see it differently because it's already happened, right?
Yes.
The man falls. I see somebody falling. So
Yeah.
it happened, split second, the man fell. And now I'm looking at it, and now I'm going to say the man stepped this way and stepped that way. So I'm recapturing the moments of how it happened, but all it was a fall. But I'm trying to do that. So when I think, then I will think again of what I was thinking before, how I thought about that. Then I get a little, it's like binging. You get stuck on it, that and you start to think and rethink, and it's so addictive. It's very juicy. It's a great pastime. So, yeah, why don't we think about, for instance, these mythologies? Take Ramayana, take anything like that. Think of Sita and Ram. Read the story, then think about what you thought of the story. Then think about what you thought, how you were thinking. Then think about how you were thinking about. So,
Mm.
4 levels down, we've no idea what the hell happened there. Whether there was
Yeah.
even a Ram and Sita or they were just in our minds, right?
Yes.
So I think this is a story, and this is what alertness is. What is enlightenment?
Mm.
Enlightenment is just awareness, deep awareness
Mm.
of, and no baggage. You
Mm.
may have the baggage there. You may still have stuff, maybe rapes, maybe other stuff, abuses and stresses and traumas, but you have dealt with that stuff. And you know that that side holds more power. So you're using that dark energy to bring into the light source, and you're using that too. So you
Mm.
actually, you don't do the rethinking, because every time you rethink, you've strengthened the unconscious.
Mm. So,
Every time. Yeah.
so Ruby, as human beings, then why have we lost that compass of how complex or chaotic our lives are? Like, why have we lost to be, if this thing happens, it's actually only this intensity. Like, it seems like something small happens, but our intensity for it is up here. So what do you think contributes to that compass now not working appropriately, where we're judging the intensity of the complexity of the situation a lot bigger than what it actually needs to be?
That is in a development. So if you have not built up, you don't know where your intuition is coming from. You haven't seen the scale of your own thinking, and you haven't done any measure of that. So it's really about self development, or some personal development does that to you. So if you haven't done it, we're sort of living still in the dark ages. We're living on borrowed information of what is right, what is wrong, and all of that. So it's really important to, I think, to, there's something such as intelligence, then there's something such as wisdom. And wisdom comes from actually having seen and visibly the experiences, not judging, not analyzing, because that is the other path. You actually just see them, okay, that exists. So it's holding opposites where they coexist, and being able to see that in your life, what you like, what you don't like. So that's all part of inner development. Now, that is where wisdom, in those gaps, is where wisdom emerges. And then intuitiveness is basically a way to cash in, to leverage that wisdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that wisdom has to be developed. We have information, we have intelligence, we have knowledge of something, but it's not wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
I think in this day and age, it is impossible to um, be at peace, or do, move forward in life if we don't have wisdom. Also, can you, because you'll have to hold the opposites together. You can't confront people. You've seen already, we can't do that. There's strong belief systems in place. There's very strong, when the individual rises, so do their opinions. So
Mm-hmm.
does everything that's in their head. They're not going to be easily convinced. And we're in the world of, we have for last 30 years worked on self-importance, personal growth, how to make myself bigger than life, how to be extraordinary, how to be special. We
Mm-hmm.
all did it, GB.
Of
We
course.
all did it. We did those workshops, we did all of that. But at some level, and this is what I mean, that there comes a point in our life, so much we fill ourselves with this individual, personal pushing and improvement stuff, that somewhere actually there's a tipping point. Our cup, or our mind and body, cannot absorb that. Consciousness cannot absorb that self importance. We start to dump it, and then we say, oh, I wish I was just ordinary. I was just ordinary. So
Mm-hmm.
I think ordinary is actually in. But and if we start to get at that I'm no more special than any other human being. I may be different, I'm unique, but I'm not certainly special. I think that's a great start, GV. If you actually went to, if you had that, in that you're just like normal, you will live, you will die, you'll get sick, you'll get hurt, whatever, all of that, then you're not holding yourself on a pedestal. But we have this terrible mental disease of wanting to be celebrities and wanting to be huge characters somewhere, right? So how are we going to dump that?
Mm-hmm.
It is recognition, and I always feel
Mm-hmm.
people say that I did so and so, I sacrificed so and did so and so. Well, Buddha could sacrifice because he had something to sacrifice. What
Mm-hmm.
do we have to sacrifice, GV? Opinion?
Mm-hmm.
What do
True.
we have? Certain beliefs, and we sacrifice this to be enlightened?
Mm-hmm.
No. So we have to build the treasury to be able to then give that, distribute that. And
Mm-hmm.
when we want to change the world, save the world, well, why are we not saving ourselves first?
Mm-hmm.
We can't even save ourselves from trauma. Like, look at little thing like that will run for 2 hours or 3 days or 4 days.
Of
And then all the friends jump in to support you. Nobody actually calls you on that bullshit, cut it out, you're too precious. And you know how little time we have, Chibi? How little time
course.
we have on this planet? I
Of
don't think we realize this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that I'm gonna bring it down to the
Yeah.
minusculeness again. That because I'm hearing this connection. I want to make sure I'm connecting it right. So when we're sitting there thinking we sas ne aa kehta, nand ne aa kehta, parjai ne, dior ne, jeth ne aa kehta, sahre ne aa, because those are the day-to-day functionalities. Colleague ne aa kehta, oh, they're just doing because they want a promotion and they want me to look bad, or my sas does this because she wants me. Like these are the day-to-day things that come up where we make assumptions that other people are out to get us. And
Yeah.
it's very similar to the battle that you were talking about, with that
Yeah.
feeling of I'm at war. So every time I walk into my house, every time I see my mother-in-law's face, these are the feelings that are going to come up for me. But I think what I'm hearing you say is that when you rise above that, when the rising becomes the wisdom plus the intellect, and you're those conversations don't mean anything anymore.
It's
Like,
just chatter. Yeah.
minuscule. So that's
But you do need a goal, though, GV. You
mm,
can't rise without a goal. So, goal is not going to be I'll make 1 million, $2 million, or I'll help the world, I'll do this. The goal can just be that I want to keep my mind, body clean. That a housewife does, that a child does, everything. I'll keep my room clean, I'll keep my cupboard clean. I'll keep, just basic something. Very simple, everyday goals of hygiene in the mind, hygiene in the physical body, hygiene in the environment, right? Stop littering, stop saying all that stuff. So I think it's important. If people have goals, they won't go there. But when you have, see, either people are encouraging you or they're discouraging you. There's only two kinds of people.
mhm,
So people who are going nowhere will discourage you always. They'll
mhm,
keep listening to you and then support you and waste your time and theirs, right? Because they want to look good. That's about it. And maybe they mean well, they need something from you. I'll tell you, it's a very ruthless world.
mhm,
Uh, it's just, we have, but a compassionate person will say, okay, this is cancer. This is developing cancer in more cells. Your talk is making you sick. And by the way, it is messing up my mind too.
mhm, mhm.
Now, do we have this bluntness or ruthlessness to be compassionate? That
Mm.
is very important to me.
Yes, indeed.
Enlightenment is in short supply, GV. Plenty of information, plenty of I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. But truly, enlightenment, awakening is very short supply. So we have to draw from wherever we can get.
Of course. I
Yeah,
think people now assume that they go through a few traumatic events and they come out the other end and they think, okay, now I'm enlightened. And
yeah, yeah,
I find it so funny when people self proclaim that they are enlightened. And because
yes,
I think for myself, I don't know if this rings true for everybody, but enlightenment for me is a process, it's a practice.
yeah,
Every day I fuck up, every day something happens, and I'm
yes,
like, oh, I thought I had dealt with that. And it's like, oh, I wish I hadn't acted in that way. Like,
yes,
situate, but you're learning and you're practicing every day to get to that place that you talk about, in which the wisdom has risen to the point at which you're not bothered by the mundane, even though you live
yes,
ordinary simple, but the
yes.
botheration is not there.
Yes, because we can't keep actually going into the dialogues again and again.
Mm-hmm.
So you said it. Spiritual life is not the goal. Is not enlightenment per se. It is the life you're living in every moment.
Mm-hmm.
That matters. That is the spiritual path.
Mm-hmm.
So, and are we present or are we not? Being present doesn't mean physically, doesn't mean even mentally to that. It just means being present to your soul and making decisions that actually either are destroying you or are feeding you. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with ego as other people. Maybe we could do next no bullshit session on that, because I think if you want to use your ego and do it, make it classy and take it all the way to the brim, fill your cup organism with this ego, self-importance, and never mind, just keep doing it. You still can create a collapse and breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Two things will happen. If you don't have the right advice, you may have a breakdown, or actually, you will have a breakthrough. And the breakthrough is the same spiritual. You land up as at the same place as a spiritual master.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go the way of the ego too. We
Mm-hmm.
can talk about that. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Or you then choose that this is how I'm going to use, but don't use both. Was she good? Then, oh no, maybe she wasn't that good. Maybe I should have done that. See, we're using both.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the cup is just stuck
Yeah.
midway. We take something, we add something, we take something, we add something, we drop, we go further, escalate. but you're never doing one thing fully. So the cup is not going over the brim and falling beautifully into the space.
Of
Stuff
course.
is, your spirit is not flowing through that.
Yes.
You're stuck. And these are the pseudo um, uh, value systems we've adopted from the world and society. You should not be
Mhm.
doing this, but you are still doing it. We lie, but
Of
yet we
course.
tell others not to lie. And then we say that, then we manipulate lies in a way that it sounds like truth.
Of
Then we
course.
get angry that why are you calling me a liar? Like, because
Yeah.
like there's whole convoluted thought system. So either be the best of liars and then be proud of that. And you will actually come into truth. I can guarantee you there's a very brilliant way of the ego
Mm.
where you can actually reach the same place. Yeah,
Yeah,
spiritually.
well, let's talk about, yeah, I think that's a great topic. Let's talk about the ego because I
Yeah,
know I
yeah,
had to do a lot of work with my ego as well. And I know that there's times where it serves me so well, and there's times it doesn't serve me well. You know, I've also got some bruises and lacerations from
yeah.
allowing the ego to sit in the driver's seat. And yet there's other situations where it's done me really well. So, um, I just want to make a request of all of our listeners too that these conversations come really easy when you're willing to be vulnerable online. So if somebody else has a wants to have a conversation like this, I think they should reach out to us and engage in the dialogue after this because we can only grow and make ourselves better if we're willing to put ourselves out there. And so I just wanted to make sure all the listeners know that this isn't something that you and I just do, that if
Yes.
somebody else wants to have this type of conversation, I think yeah, it's open to people to come online and have this type of conversation.
Absolutely. And feedback in the we want to know what you're thinking. And if you are spending time listening to this, then you should be participating at a whole different level, right? I
Mhm.
get a lot of people who tell me that from the Thursday night videos, and oh, you're a brilliant content creator. Your content is, and a lot of people use this content. So, and absolutely, I love that because I want people to steal this wisdom, to rob this and use it. But I would love to actually dialogue with them also. So
Mhm.
that would be really interesting because people often write to me in privately that I'm using this content, I use that, I use this, and I shared that or I shared this. But if we did it on this platform, it would be really encouraging for others and us too. You know?
Yeah, and these conversations are very informal. I mean, I don't sit here with my, these there's nothing formal about these
Yeah.
conversations. This is just cutting the bullshit and getting real.
Yes.
Like, and I think that's what the most important part is that we don't I don't come on this call pre-fixing what I'm going to say. Like you and I just go into the conversation and it is what it is. And I think the more we start to have this level of transparency of conversations about what's really going on, because our mouths can move all they want and say I'm a good person, I remain zen all day, and I handle
Yes.
my life with grace and ease. But
Yes.
I've learned that even after, as you said, conference after conference, book after book, ashram after ashram, and here we are still having some of those conversations because that's the reality of life, right?
Yes, yes. We do need mirrors, and it's important. You know, we are too self conscious that we are not enough,
Mm-hmm.
where we don't have enough this, enough that. And so we get a little shy and we feel also a little shame in asking and saying that we have problems, you know. So I think it's very important, and that's why you do that and I do that. We keep our conversations really factual, and these are some of the things that have happened to us and still happen,
Mm-hmm.
and this is how we resolved it. And it's when you're sitting in front of a guru, and especially in India, you will never be able to ask these questions. You
Mm-hmm.
sit in a satsang, first of all, you'll be sitting on the floor, not where the guru is. So
Yes.
that's a whole different hierarchy system. You'll never be able to open up in front of those thousands of people and ask. And so I think it's very important to create more platforms for dialogues and conversations where people can express themselves, showcase themselves fully. And I really encourage people to talk about their dark spaces, because that's where the light is hiding. Don't tell me how good you are. If you're that perfect, you should leave the room, because it's boring, right? So
Yes.
perfectionism is boring. So you need to exit and make room for somebody who actually is real and wants to, grow into. So, and how do we grow into light? We use the dark. We
That's
have the dark space. Our dark space is 98%.
mm-hmm.
So 98% is not being used. It's dark. We never visit. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
dark room, a basement place. You never visit that place. And we live from the 2%. So the only way I know is that we have to bring up this darkness, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And if we can do it, I'm sure it's will inspire people to actually have these open dialogues and conversations
Mm-hmm.
over coffee, whoever they're with also.
Yes, indeed.
It's setting up, it's almost like giving permission to people that, you know what, you can do that. You can use any language you want. You can say bullshit. You can say whatever, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
All right. Well, I look
This
forward
was good.
to
Okay, we'll come back. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for sharing these videos and watching these videos. Do give us the feedback, and we will come back again with a very juicy conversation again, and from darkness to light, or light to darkness, whatever, because both are brilliant powers. So we'll get there next time. Okay,
okay.
Jeannie.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Have a
Love
great
you.
evening.